Hello and welcome to Heresy, the show that argues against received wisdom. This is where you hear the unexpected, like Richard Littlejohn saying, "Do you know, I don't really have an opinion on that." Unfortunately, Richard Littlejohn couldn't join us this evening. He had a prior engagement. It's gay night at the Finsbury Roller Mosque. Richard wouldn't miss it. So instead, I'm delighted to welcome journalist and restaurant critic Matthew Norman and a pair of comedy writers and actors, or possibly actors and writers, David Schneider and David Mitchell. We're going to hear three opinions with which the nation tends automatically to agree. Here's the first one. The theme tune there, to Panorama. But should children watch as much television as they do? 80% of our live studio audience agree with the statement the TV shouldn't be used as a babysitter. David Mitchell, were you forced to watch too much TV as a child?
No, throughout my childhood, my obsession with television was held in front of me as a great shame and a reason why I wasn't a proper person, and I was destroying my imagination by watching Knight Rider instead of reading novels or getting fresh air. And I was very bitter about that and filled with self-loathing, which has set me on the career path of a comedian, so I'm very grateful to it.
David Schneider, you actually have children.
Well, you sound amazed by that.
Well, so few people I know do.
Well, I have, and they're older now, 13 and 15, but it was cruel of you to play that music because I used to, like some sort of dancing bear for my own children, have to perform the title sequence every time the Teletubbies was on. Thank God it's radio, so I can't do it here, but...
Oh, but you can.
Honestly, it would be horrible for me. The fact is that they were the generation of the Teletubbies, and I strongly disagree. Whoever thinks, and I'm looking around the audience, and I mean, who's got kids here? Anyone got kids?
Very few.
3 people, 2 of them with each other, I think. If you've got kids, the 3 of you will know how vital it is to use television as a babysitter because, much as I love my kids, they're dull. Kids are dull. Not just my kids, don't worry. Kids are dull. My kids came home, one of my daughters, she's about 6, she's in school, she wanted to show off how far she could count. Now, counting is up to infinity, yes? And as a dad, you do not want to cause trauma. You have to keep listening. That's very good, that's very good. It's like when someone tells you a joke and you think that's the punchline. But no, it carries on and on and on. So you need a break, you need the television, but not the Teletubbies.
Matthew Norman, do you sneer at parents who dump their kids in front of the TV?
Well, I've got a boy of 13, and when he was about 2, we had a chat about it, and we thought, obviously, as a babysitter, a television is better than any 15-year-old girl, because, it's a slim Japanese model. It won't raid your liquor cabinet, it won't charge you 10 quid an hour, and it won't copulate on your, on your chaise longue. But the key thing here, which we decided, and we've actually been quite responsible about this, is setting boundaries. And we stuck to this, and we have religiously to this day, that he would watch no more than 12 hours a day in a week. And it's done him no harm at all. He's 13. He's very close to being able to tie his own shoelaces. If he'd been a different generation, he'd be able to tell the time from watching Play School, with the clock and the big hand. He can't yet, but it's close. So, it's been a triumph, really.
Middle-class parents are supposed to fill their children's lives with French lessons and art classes and ballet lessons. David Mitchell, did you get that stuff?
I don't think they're supposed to do that. I think what they're supposed to do is feel that they're supposed to do that. It's not about what they actually do, it's about feeling perpetually inadequate. And that was why television was so valuable in my childhood. I wasn't just a boring child. My God, my parents glazed over whenever I tried to tell them anything. But I was also bored. Life, there was nothing in the suburb that I was interested in. I didn't want to be cycling around because it's dangerous and there was, dog shit to fall into. And so the television, with a car that can talk and spaceships and, moving pictures and people who looked you in the eye.
People say that children who watch too much television are denied the beautiful natural world around us. Should they, David Schneider, be made to watch the National Geographic Channel?
I think this guilt is a major factor. I slightly disagree with David when he's saying that it's about feeling guilt. I think in any social group of parents, there's always one family that is actually doing all these things. I mean, I shouldn't mention their names, and if you could just bleep out whenever I say the but the they when I was vegging in front of the telly with my kids or just leaving them on their own, they were not just playing with Play-Doh and making, this is true, making statues of great art. So they would do Rodin with their 2-year-old with Play-Doh that they made themselves. It's the who are responsible for saying that television is a bad babysitter.
The thing is, I think when you mention the everyone has a different family name they're thinking of.
Yes.
Although statistically, some people have come from those families. They're presumably ruling the world. what the likes of the in my childhood were always advocating to my parents, it seems, is swimming badges. The greatest failure in my life, because I watched Dynasty every week, was that I didn't have any swimming badges.
Yes.
And I wasn't going to be a fully fledged human unless I could do various antics in a swimming pool.
With pyjamas.
Yeah, it's always... Apparently, yeah, in the post-aeroplane future, where we're all getting liners to the United States because that's where the food is, the U-boats only attack at night.
Did you ever have to pick up the brick from the bottom of the pool?
No, I didn't go in for the sweet
In your pyjamas.
In your pyjamas, in case the house fell into an underground lake.
There's a whole generation of men and women now of my age who can't pull on a pair of pyjamas without thinking they're going to drown.
What do you think, Matthew, that children should be watching on television?
Well, it's so hard to find good snuff movies with a PG rating, isn't it, these days? It's very, very
I'll see you afterwards, Matthew.
Yeah.
I
I don't know. I mean, when my boy was about 4, I found on UK Gold, on one of those channels on a Saturday morning, an old Doctor Who with, I don't know, Tom Baker or Peter Davison or someone. And he got obsessed about Doctor Who, because I hadn't been on for 20 years.
What have you done to him?
But that was great. So I had a year of absolute peace. He spent 12 hours a day in the week watching old Doctor Who's. And a year later, you know, I found myself at a Doctor Who convention in the Edgware Road. With a 5-year-old boy gazing at this scene, and 3,000 45-year-old men in polyester. And apart from me, and that's touch and go, he was the only person in the room that you could be fairly sure didn't have decomposing bodies under his floorboards. So, you know, there are always risks with these things.
Let's go to the audience. Chris Britton, you strongly agree that the TV shouldn't be used as a babysitter. Why not?
And I wrote that down. And then I started thinking back to my childhood, and Thunderbirds did feature quite highly in it, and Thomas the Tank Engine. Strongly... The thing is, it's...
Well, it's nice that you have this strong opinion.
I know. It's clear, isn't it?
Where's Rob Lees-Jones? Why do you think the TV shouldn't be used as a babysitter?
Well, I think I had quite a privileged childhood. I had fields to play in. I had as much space to run around in as I wanted. But at the same time, I did watch a lot of television, and now I do have a Transformers tattoo.
It is not true that television leads inexorably to tattoos. You were born with the urge to get tattoos. Describe this tattoo.
Oh, it's just here on my right shoulder. It's a Decepticon insignia.
It's a what?
It is a type of fictional robot.
Well, you've lost me. I think we should move on. For our next topic, prepare your palates for a culinary quandary.
Oh, look! The menu's shaped like a rook.
It's the name of the restaurant, isn't it? Complete Rook. There's Rook Patty here. Rook Patty. Do you recommend the Rook Patty? Only when we've got a lot we want to get rid of. Well, it's honest, at least. What about soup of the day? What is the soup of the day? Rook soup. I expect it. I expect it's nicer than it sounds. Bleeding isn't.
Why is that funny? Because the two Ronnies are brilliant, obviously, but also because they're talking seriously about rook soup. And that's ridiculous. We have a distinction between the animals we eat and those we don't. For example, 54% of our live audience believe you shouldn't eat animals that are kept as pets. Matthew Norman, you're a restaurant critic. How strict are your rules about what you will and won't eat?
I was looking at the dogs tonight as I left home. We've got 3 dogs. And
yummy.
I thought, yeah. And I thought, well, the Labrador's probably not bad. But a 15-year-old incontinent, senile West Highland Terrier, I think that the one rule is...
eat them when they're young.
Well, there's that. If, on the other hand, you're squeamish, spend a couple of lunchtimes in a Sichuan restaurant. I went somewhere recently, I think it was braised gizzard of syphilitic Tibetan mountain yak, in latter stage kidney disease, braised in its own renal juices. So, I mean, if you're going to... The Chinese have no compunction
I think something's wrong with the translator there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there is obviously a kind of hypocrisy here. We, sort of middle-class Radio 4 listening folk, are probably a little bit too squeamish about it, and I can't see any clear moral distinction between eating a Labrador and eating a sheep.
David Schneider?
You can have a YouTube threshold where if they can skateboard, do Lady Gaga impressions or whatever, don't eat them. If they are just a pig, then eat them. That's the thing. I think Matthew is right about the hypocrisy. I'm someone who cannot kill anything. Last night there was a moth. I found a moth that's been eating my clothes in my house, but I couldn't. There was a nonsense about getting a glass and trying to get the moth in the glass and getting it outside, because I don't believe in killing. But if you served me moth ragu, I'd eat it. And I think that is the hypocrisy. I'm very urban like that. David, you seem...
Well, I just wonder, with this moth, do you think it's not going to, when you get the moth outside, it's not going to say, oh, actually, he's quite right, I'll eat grass from now on. It's just going to eat someone else's jumper.
That's not my problem, though. The door is shut, and...
They can't get through doors.
They can't get through doors. I'd turn all the lights off as well, so it would go to another house, you see. I've thought it all through.
Why, David Mitchell, why is it OK to eat a cow but not a hamster?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fine to... I think it's fine to eat either. I think the great advantage of a cow is, well, as David says, they're unlikely to do entertaining tricks, and they're larger. So, essentially, if
Very hard to find a wheel the size of a cow.
Yes.
I'd like to see that on YouTube, though.
Yeah. And obviously, the hamster equivalent of a T-bone steak is barely a canapé. But I think the thing with... It's not nice to eat your own pets, because, you've come to love them and look after them, and it's a bit weird. So I think the trick is to eat other people's.
Well, that's...
We ascribe personalities to certain animals. The two Ronnies joke about eating rook, but people eat pigeon. Would you eat a parrot?
Not if it asks me not to first. No, I think that's the cut-off point. I think things that can talk get difficult.
Thinking about this made me also think about what people I would eat. Because there's sort of... Just me, then? Would I rather eat someone I knew, who I knew where they'd been, like a loved one, or Jim Davidson, who... These are important questions.
Do you think you'd eat people who are trained in sectors of the economy that are overstaffed? So, well, for example, we'd be mad to eat plumbers, wouldn't we? Because there's such a shortage of plumbers. Whereas people who've done media studies degrees...
I have a hunch that the plumbers would taste better, though.
Well, I know, but we've got to think about the economy. You start eating, vital sectors of the workforce, consultant surgeons, whereas priests, we could pretty much... We could eat the lot, and I reckon the economy would continue to function.
The point that needs making, really, is that it's hypocrisy, isn't it? Be a vegetarian or don't be one. Don't have these false distinctions.
Well, you've got to draw the line somewhere. I draw the line... I wouldn't actually... I don't want to sound too sort of holier than thou, but I wouldn't actually eat a human.
Really?
I don't think it's right to eat humans, but I think any other creature is fine, and I include in that potential intelligent life from other planets.
Here's the thing that Tracy Emin said. I find it difficult eating cute things. I never eat rabbit. When Mark Hicks makes me his rabbit and crayfish stargazy pies, I can't have rabbit in it. Who's she to say that a rabbit is cuter than a crayfish?
She's absolutely right there. Essentially, there are different sorts of animal. There are mammals that are nice and cuddly, and you want to stroke them even if they're horrible carnivores that would actually kill you. And then there are things like crustaceans that are basically miniaturised monsters.
You say that. My dad didn't like to eat lobsters because he said it wasn't a fair fight. He thought, because lobsters have developed...
It's never a fair fight. We're humans.
What, the rabbits
got nuclear weapons.
I saw a lobster being killed when I was 12 that I'd made the terrible mistake of calling Snippy. Even then I was very imaginative. And it was horrible. And luckily lobsters aren't kosher, so I can't eat them anyway, but it was...
You can kill them.
It made it...
There's nothing in the Torah about that.
But actually, the mere action of seeing Snippy killed made me love it more.
Oh, my God.
That's the most profound existential thing I think I've ever heard.
I saw a lobster die as a child as well. Did you? At the age of 4, in a caravan in France. My parents asked the French people in the caravan next door how to cook a lobster, and they answered in French, which my parents, I don't think, spoke perfectly, because the meaning they inferred from this conversation is what you do is you put the lobster in a pan of cold water and then bring it to the boil.
That is how you cook them.
It's a real journey for the lobster, that. Because the lobster initially sort of saying, oh, this is unusual accommodation, but, you know, the water's very clean, there don't seem to be any predators. Then there's the lobster equivalent of going, ooh, hot in here. And then gradually the lobster smells a rat, which we were cooking with it for the flavours.
I think we should wind up that topic. I think we've proved that if you're going to eat meat, you might as well eat all meat. So, if times are hard, go ahead and tuck into your pets. That wouldn't be such a big loss for me because I have 2 pets, a haddock and a potato. Our final topic involves that great new medium of mass communication, Twitter.
Just talking loud, just saying nothing, just saying nothing, just saying nothing.
For anyone who doesn't know, Twitter is a website on which people write their thoughts in no more than 140 characters, and one gathers followers who read these thoughts and respond. Unfortunately, 67% of our live audience agree with the idea that Twitter is an act of massive collective narcissism. David Schneider, you're big on Twitter.
Yeah, and I fit the bill. What can I say? Well, I mean, yes, I do. I live on Twitter, really. I mean, I do have a family in case Twitter breaks down, which it does sometimes. And that's almost too close to the truth. Yes, it's narcissistic, but it's more than that. It's also egotistical, sadistic, masochistic. Yes, people do statuses like, it's Friday. I saw someone tweet that. On a Friday. It wasn't even like, I'll be witty on a Thursday and say it's Friday. But I do feel that Twitter has functions. It's politically, I would say in the election it was very important. There was this huge sort of swell on Twitter, get out and vote. Everyone went out to vote, and Twitter law has it, that, and I think there's truth in it, that one of the reasons why there was this inundation at the polling booths of students was because they saw that, oh, well, everyone's voting, I better get out. So that's an example of where Twitter actually does perform and function, if you believe it.
It's also an example of what morons people are. So they're sitting around at their computers. There's been a well-publicised general election, and they haven't thought to vote until they see a tweet about it from someone they recognise off the telly.
Half of them thought it was Friday, anyway, from the other Twitter, so they thought they missed the boat.
Matthew Norman, are you a fan of Twitter?
I can't get my head around this. I'm sorry. I'm obviously the grumpy old bore here, but I was very close to joining Twitter a couple of years ago, and then there was that JFK moment, you know, that heart-stopping, terrible moment, and you'll never forget where you were or what you were doing when you heard that Stephen Fry had resigned from Twitter. And then, I mean, so what do you do then? I mean, who went on a motorcade through Dallas on November the 23rd, 1963? You just don't do it. So, for me, that was the end of it. I know he came back within about 12 hours, but I never got over that.
David Mitchell, you're on Twitter. Is that for narcissistic reasons?
For cynical reasons of self-promotion. I don't know if that's narcissism. It's all linked into my obsession with accruing as much money as possible, which I can then plough into trying to destroy the world. The reason I went on Twitter is someone was pretending to be me on Twitter, and I thought, well, if someone is going to post bland or offensive inanities under my name, it might as well be me.
Didn't somebody criticise you on there for promoting something you were doing?
Forever. What I tend to put on Twitter, because I don't put things like I'm waiting for a cab, and I don't believe in giving away free jokes. What I do is I put things I'm doing in my job. Turns out there are some people who follow me on Twitter, see I say something about my job, and then angrily say, I'm not going to follow you, you're just talking about your job. I thought you were real, and now you're in some way a corporation. It tends to be the attitude.
I do put jokes out on Twitter.
You bust. You know how the value of the joke is falling on international exchanges.
I'm locked into the euro on my jokes with Greece, unfortunately. Because I love the form, and in the rest of my career I tend not to do topical jokes, for example, but Twitter allows me to do very concise jokes. And I think, like, for example, my JFK moment, because I'm such a Twitter geek, was the death of Michael Jackson, because I found that out through Twitter, and there was this sort of amazing hadron collision of grieving fans and people making hilarious jokes that you just stood back and within maybe 3 seconds of it being confirmed he was dead, someone had tweeted, "Dead man moonwalking." There was absolute uproar. I think that's what Twitter is great about, is as things happen, like the election, to watch the debates on Twitter at the same time gave a whole level that you didn't get just watching the
No,
television.
I think that's true, and I think politically, you never know something's really cool, do you, until politicians jump on that bandwagon. That's the only way you could be. And now we've got David Miliband saying, just been to a great meeting, and John Prescott's on Twitter.
Yeah.
They found a form of communication. It's a miracle. John Prescott, how many grammatical catastrophes can you have in 140 characters? Shouldn't the aphasic be represented too?
That's what I like about Twitter, is that in the real life, you meet someone, I shouldn't have said that, that was wrong, I don't think they like what I said. In Twitter, you go away for half an hour, you prepare what you say, you put it on, and people go, yeah, that was funny, or they don't, but you can prepare it. It's amazing that I haven't tweeted...
Half an hour a tweet.
Huh?
Half an hour for 140 characters.
That's
I'm doing 3 letters a minute.
But
5.
that's like saying, Michelangelo, you should have knocked that statue off in like a week.
Well, it is. I mean, Twitter, Sistine Chapel, how can you tell them apart?
I tell you, no, let's defend it.
You're trying to raise the tweet to a high art form.
I'm not... Let's not go Michelangelo.
All right.
I do strongly regret bringing him in.
Okay. All right. Let's say Donizetti.
Let's not say the Sistine Chapel. Maybe like a good episode of Inspector Morse.
Yeah, well, I would say there are people on Twitter who are so expert now at doing jokes that would only work on Twitter that it's an art form that they have developed.
There's different sorts of tweet, aren't there? That's the funny kind,
Yeah.
but there's the serious kind. I mean, in a very real sense, the global Twitter stream is a reflection of the collective consciousness of mankind. And by a very real sense, I mean, isn't that at all, unless you're a columnist for The Guardian. Matthew Norman, you're a columnist for The Guardian. Can you see that there might actually be something genuinely quite important about the world being to talk to itself?
Yeah, I mean, there was this tremendous burst of hope, wasn't there, during the alleged Twitter revolution in Tehran not long ago. And for the last time I looked, the mullahs were still there. But you can see the possibilities. It's like some collective consciousness, a stream of consciousness.
It's also actually got an atmosphere to it that's quite nice, for all the fact that people do send annoying and sort of chippy responses to things sometimes. In general, people are really polite on Twitter, and that's not something you can say about the internet in general.
No, certainly not the newspaper comments.
No, exactly. You're just so aware of how much rage there is, how many people there are smashing their faces against keyboards and clicking send. Well, over 140 characters, maybe because it's 140 characters, you have to think about it a bit more and some of the rage comes out of it. So, I think there's a sort of nice, natural atmosphere on Twitter.
I really very strongly disagree with this received opinion. I love Twitter. I love the conversations I have on there. I think there's something miraculous about, as you say, an election or something big or something serious or a tragedy abroad, and people from everywhere are just speaking to each other. It's a kind of new vision of democracy.
I mean, I think that Iranian thing was an example because you can be cynical about it, and we all changed our avatars, our little pictures, to green and support, but then people were tweeting from Iran that that was their only outlet, the only way they could get news out there. You watched BBC journalists contacting them on Twitter. That was the only way they could contact. Yes, it was embarrassing that we all changed our location to Tehran, and some people still haven't changed it back because it's a bit like, oh, we've given up, we failed. But the reason we all did that was because the people tweeting from Iran were saying, please, can you all change your location so that we're harder to locate?
You didn't literally change your location to Tehran?
Yeah, lots of people.
No, not literally.
No,
that
you didn't actually move.
Moving to Tehran.
You see, you're struggling now to separate life from Twitter.
That's the measure. I feel I live on Twitter, so I did literally, yeah.
Let's go to the audience. Adrian Mark, you strongly agree that Twitter is narcissistic. Why is that?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, I follow the three members on the panel who are on Twitter, and occasionally you do entertaining tweets.
I don't. No, I'm sorry. If you've been entertained, I think you owe me some money. I
was obviously talking to Victoria and David then.
Yeah, no, I just blandly inform of events.
But, so there's nothing wrong with that. What I don't understand is I have never tweeted, because beyond my family and friends, I don't think anyone's got any interest in what I do.
You're silently watching.
But, yes, but I still have people following me. And I have never tweeted, and I actually asked one person one time, not that I mind, but why are you following me? And they apologised and stopped following me.
It's the end of the show, so let's stop now and just say hooray for Twitter, allowing the world to talk democratically and concisely to itself. It's just been announced that the US Library of Congress is to acquire all the tweets that have ever been sent for posterity. This incredible resource will mean that historians of the future will be able to look back and discover that @Charlie Fay said, no, Aunt Desi, some of you look for love in all the wrong places and it be right there in your face. Like, hello? Thanks so much to my guests, Matthew Norman, David Schneider and David Mitchell. Like, goodbye.